Something is quietly changing inside every Kroger in the country right now. 13 specific items, and the window to do anything about it is already closing. I went through the USDA data, the tariff schedules, the import records, and every single source confirmed the same thing. These aren't random shortages. There are specific forces driving each one, and they are not reversing before August. Number one on this list just hit a price that has never been recorded in the entire history of American grocery retail. Here are all 13, ranked by how fast the window's closing and what you can actually do before it shuts. 1. Canned tomato paste. I know what just went through your head. Tomato paste. That tiny can under $1. The one you grab without even glancing at the price tag. That reaction is exactly why this one opens the list. 2 completely separate cost pressures are hitting this product at the same time, and almost nobody is watching either of them. The first is the can itself. On June 4th of last year, the Section 232 tariff on imported steel and aluminum was doubled to 50%. No country exemptions, no exceptions. The American Action Forum published a study in April 2026 confirming that manufacturers are now absorbing up to 12% higher production costs. But here's the key detail. Those costs have not fully reached the shelf yet. They are working their way through annual supply contracts that reset between now and early 2027. The increase is already locked in. It just has not fully landed. The second pressure is what goes inside the can. 2. Store brand ground beef. Most people look at the price on a foam tray of ground beef and assume it reflects what beef costs this week. It does not. It reflects a herd that has been shrinking for 13 consecutive years. The USDA's annual cattle inventory, published January 30th of this year, counted 86.2 million head of cattle in the U.S. That is the smallest herd since 1951, 75 years. The beef cow count, the animals that produce future calves, dropped to 27.6 million, down another 1% from the year before. Here is what makes that number alarming. That decline happened while prices were at record highs. Ranchers had every possible financial incentive to expand. 3. Fresh salmon fillets. Walk up to the Kroger seafood case right now and look at the Atlantic salmon. The color is still that deep coral orange. The flesh still glistens. The smell is clean and fresh, and the price tag reads $12 to $14 a pound. 18 months ago, that same tag said something very different. The USDA's June 2026 food price. Outlook projects fish and seafood, rising faster than their 20-year historical average this year. The BLS shows the category climbing 1.2% in a single month through May 2026, with a year-over-year increase running at roughly 6.5%. 4. Baking chocolate and cocoa powder. This category did something almost no grocery item manages to do. It got dramatically more expensive and simultaneously started delivering less product per package at the exact same time. It started in West Africa. Back-to-back droughts combined with an outbreak of swollen shoot virus devastated cocoa harvests in the Ivory Coast and Ghana. Those two countries together produce roughly 60% of the world's cocoa. Futures prices peaked at $13,000 per metric ton in late 2024. By early 2026, they had pulled back to the $5,000 to $6,000 range. That sounds like relief. It is not. $5 to $6,000 per metric ton is still 2 to 3 times the historical norm. The peak has eased. 5. Ground coffee. Walk into the Kroger coffee aisle and everything looks normal. Shelves fully stocked. Dozens of options. No signs of anything unusual. Then look at the price on that store brand canister, the one that reliably sat at $5.99. It reads $8.49, sometimes $9.29. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the average retail price of 1 pound of ground roast coffee hit $9.72 in April 2026, the highest on record since the BLS began tracking this category in 1980. Year over year, coffee prices are up 18.5%. The cause traces directly to Brazil, the world's largest coffee producer, where severe drought through 2024 and 2025 reduced yields across the entire Arabica growing belt. 6. Canned corn and canned green beans. This is the item nobody tracks, and I mean that literally. Canned corn. 49, maybe 59. A reflex purchase. Something you grab without reading the label, without checking the price, without a second thought. That invisibility is exactly why the tariff impact lands hardest here. The mechanism is the same steel tariff hitting canned tomato paste. But the math is sharper for cheap canned vegetables, because the can itself represents a much larger share of the total retail price. 7. Canned soup. Canned soup is supposed to be untouchable, cheap, filling, shelf-stable for years. The thing families reach for when they need to stretch a budget as far as it will go. That reputation is exactly what makes what is happening to it right now matter so much. The can is steel. The 50% Section 232 tariff applies directly. The American Action Forum confirmed that the full cost works its way into shelf prices as supply contracts reset, and that window arrives by early 2027. But some of it is not waiting. Some of it is already here. Conagra Brands, which makes Hunt's, Chef Boyardee, and several private label soups you see at Kroger every week, stated in its fiscal year 2026 earnings that packaging input costs remain elevated and are being managed through pricing. Campbell Soup made nearly identical comments in its investor communications through 2025 and into 2026. Both companies told shareholders the same thing. 8. Canned and bottled soft drinks. The price of a 12-pack of soda has been quietly climbing for months, and the reason has almost nothing to do with the drink itself. It is the can. The same Section 232 tariff that hits steel also applied to aluminum at 50%. Effective June 2025, every can of Coke, Pepsi, sparkling water, and store-brand soda is made of aluminum. The Can Manufacturers Institute stated publicly that those tariffs created substantial upward cost pressure on American-produced canned goods by dramatically increasing the price of the core input material. Then add the sugar inside. The USDA projects the sweetener category to rise 6.7% this year. The BLS projects non-alcoholic beverages overall up 5.7%, well above the 20-year historical average. At Kroger, a 12-pack that sat at $40 to $5 not long ago now reads $6 to $8, depending on the brand. A household buying two 12-packs a week is now spending $60 to $70 a month on canned soda. That is up from $45 to $50 just a year ago. Here's the part most families have not figured out yet. The 2L bottle is not subject to the aluminum tariff. Per ounce, even before any tariff math, the 2L format is already significantly cheaper than cans. Families already ahead of this have made one simple change. 2L for daily use. Cans only when portability specifically requires it. That single switch can cut soft drink spending by 30 to 40%, without changing what you are actually drinking. 9. Granulated sugar. Sugar has been climbing quietly for over a year. In 2026, the pace has picked up. The USDA's June 2026 food price outlook projects the sugar and sweets category to rise 6.7% this year, placing it among the fastest-moving categories in the entire grocery store. The BLS confirmed a 1.3% jump in a single month between April and May 2026 alone. The causes are global, and they are compounding. Drought in India and Thailand, two of the world's largest producers, cut output through 2024 and 2025. Brazil, which normally fills that kind of supply gap, redirected more of its sugar cane toward ethanol production as fuel prices surged following the Iran conflict. Less Brazilian sugar reached the global export market. 10. Olive oil. 3 years. That is how long consecutive drought conditions have been simultaneously compressing olive harvests across Spain, Italy, and Greece, the three countries that together supply the vast majority of the world's olive oil. The IMF's Global Commodity Tracker, referenced through the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, showed olive oil per metric ton in June 2026, running at roughly double the 10-year average that preceded this drought cycle. Spain alone accounts for nearly half of global production, and its 2024 harvest was among the worst ever recorded. The European Commission reported that EU production fell by approximately 1/3 from historical averages across the past two growing seasons. 11. Bread and all-purpose flour. Bread is psychologically different from every other item on this list. When the price of bread moves, households feel it in a way they just do not feel with almost anything else. It is the sandwich for the kids, the toast in the morning, the thing you check the bread box for before you write the grocery list. And right now, the wheat behind it is under real pressure. A USDA crop report from June 2026 confirmed that U.S. wheat production has fallen to its lowest level since 1970. Drought across the southern Great Plains and parts of the Pacific Northwest compressed winter wheat yields for the second year in a row. The USDA Economic Research Service projects cereal and bakery product prices to keep rising through the rest of 2026. 12. Fresh tomatoes. This is the one that genuinely stopped me when I pulled the data. The BLS Consumer Price Index for April 2026 reported fresh tomato prices up 39.7% year over year, the single steepest increase of any individual produce item the Bureau currently tracks. And it was not close. What makes this one different from almost everything else on this list is that it was not caused by one thing. It was three forces hitting the same product in the same season. The first was Florida. In mid-January 2026, a hard freeze moved through the state's west coast. The first, severe enough to destroy standing crops in 15 years. 5 hours of sub-freezing temperatures was enough. Growers reported losing approximately 80% of the state's entire crop in a single weather event. 13. Fresh beef steaks. This is the one I mentioned at the very beginning, and I want to be specific about what I mean when I say it. The price of fresh beef steaks has reached the highest level ever recorded in American grocery history. Not the highest in a decade, not the highest since the last recession, the highest since records began. And it is not being driven by one thing. It is three structural forces operating simultaneously, none of which resolves independently, and none of which has a quick fix. The first is the herd. The USDA's January 2026 cattle inventory counted 86.2 million head, the smallest total since 1951. The marbling is still there. The color is still that deep ruby red. The cut looks identical to the one you have grilled every summer for 20 years. But the tag is not telling you what this season's beef costs. It is telling you the story of a herd that has been shrinking for over a decade, a border supply line that closed last year, and a fuel market that shifted in February. None of those three things are resolving in 2026. These 13 items are not 13 separate problems. They are one pressure arriving through 13 different aisles at the same time. The steel and aluminum tariffs are moving through the can supply chain on a contract reset schedule, and that reset is coming. Diesel is up more than 50% since. So, tell me which item on this list are you going to take care of first? Let me know in the comments. I am genuinely curious which one hit closest to home.